Now we are going to study about the drug target interaction, that how the drug interact with its target enzyme. But before we start, you should know that actually what an enzyme is. As we have already discussed also, that enzymes are the proteins which actually act as a biocatalyst. That means they catalyze different chemical reactions. So how they catalyze different chemical reaction, our approach is this, that we should actually know about that how it is helpful in catalyzing the reaction, like what is the mechanism of the enzyme actually. So see how it can catalyze. Either it hold the substrate for a chemical reaction. That means, like we know that when a reaction is going to take place, it will have a substrate and a reagent which will react to give a product. So it might hold the substrate for a chemical reaction. So it can do that. Second thing is that it may provide functional groups, certain kind of groups that attack substrate, and so that the substrate is you can say attacked by the reagent in a proper manner and the chemical reaction take place. So either of the two actually the enzyme does in the reaction. Either it holds the substrate and helps the reaction to occur, or it provides certain kind of groups that actually help the substrate to carry out a certain chemical reaction. So I am going to tell you in detail that how it can actually hold the substrate. See, the enzyme is like this. Suppose I have drawn a structure for enzyme. Enzyme is something like this. As you can see, it has a vacant place here. This is called as its active site. This is called the active site of enzyme. And this block which I have made is the substrate. This is the substrate. As you can see that the place, the active site of the enzyme is actually you can say have a similar structure, or you can say a similar block kind of thing which a substrate actually possess. That means shape of the substrate is such that it can fit into the active site of the enzyme. This is what happened. This substrate actually fit in the active site like this, and they form a kind of complex. Now this complex actually it holds the substrate in such a manner that the reagent at the substrate in an effective manner and the chemical reaction actually take place. So that means here you can say that it is allowing the substrate and reagent to react in a proper manner so that the chemical reaction can occur. So this is what is a catalyst, right? This is what is a catalyst, that which helps the chemical reaction to occur. So this is how it is making the chemical reaction possible. So what you need to write here is, see, active site of enzyme hold the substrate in a proper way so that it is attacked by the reagent in an effective manner. And you know that the bond which is formed between the substrate and the enzyme, the linkage can be hydrogen bond, van der Waals force, dipole-dipole interaction, it can be any kind of force. But there will always be, the enzyme will always be holding the substrate in a proper manner so that it is attacked by the reagent and the reaction can take place effectively. And the second thing we have already discussed, that it may provide functional group which helps the substrate to carry out the chemical reaction. So by these two manners, the mechanism, the enzyme is actually acting as a biocatalyst. Now coming on the drugs, that how the drug inhibit the action of enzyme, or how the drug targets the enzyme. So how it targets, actually it inhibits its both function. It can actually have the power to inhibit its both function, like the drugs can actually block the binding site. This binding site, that is the active site where the substrate can fit, the drugs can actually block this site. Obviously, if the blockage will occur, the substrate won't fit there, and the substrate will, if the substrate won't fit there, then how the reaction is going to take place, right? So this may happen. The drug can act here in this it can block the active site. Secondly, it can actually inhibit the chemical activity of the enzyme. So in both way, we can say that the drugs can have a, you can say the effect on the activity of the enzymes, and they can be enzyme inhibitors. They can be enzyme inhibitors. So these are the two functions which the enzymes are performing, and the drugs can actually you can say interfere in their function by these two things which I have mentioned. So now we are going to study in detail that how they can block the site and how they can actually inhibit the catalytic activity of the enzyme, which is very important. So we are going to discuss these two things, that how the drugs you can say interfere in the mechanism of the enzymes.